Hey everyone, I need to get this off my chest because it's been haunting me for months. What started as a gut feeling about my husband turned into a twisted mess I never saw coming. I'm still piecing it together, but here's what happened. I've been married to my husband, let's call him Trey, for about 5 years. He's an advertising exec, charming, hardworking, the whole package. But lately, he'd been staying late at the office way too often, and I'd catch him texting someone with this little smirk. He swore it was just work, but I couldn't shake the feeling he was lying. Then one night, I saw him grab dinner with his ex-girlfriend, Jeanette. He said it was a client meeting. She's some big shot in his industry, but it didn't sit right. They looked too cozy, you know? I confided in my best friend, Sasha, who told me to hire a private investigator. Get proof, she said, then confront him. It made sense at the time. So, I found this guy, Ethan Woods, through a quick search. Ex-cop, rough around the edges, but his reviews said he was thorough. I met him in this dingy office that smelled like stale coffee, handed over a wad of cash, and told him to follow Trey. I just wanted the truth. At first, Ethan was great. He'd call with updates, Trey leaving the office late, meeting Jeanette at some upscale restaurant, even laughing over drinks. Every report twisted the knife deeper. Ethan sent me blurry photos, nothing concrete, but enough to make my imagination run wild. I started picturing Trey and Jeanette rekindling whatever they had before me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Our son, Dylan, kept asking why I was so sad, and I'd just hug him and fake a smile. But then things got weird. Ethan started calling more often, not just with updates, but to check in. His voice would soften, like he was trying to comfort me. You deserve better than this guy, he'd say. I brushed it off, thought he was just being nice. Then one day, our nosy neighbor, Mr. Carter, didn't show up for his usual morning wave. I found out later he'd been stabbed in his backyard. Police said it was a random break-in, but the timing felt off. A week later, Ethan dropped a bomb. He said he'd caught Trey on tape admitting to an affair. He played me this grainy audio, Trey's voice unmistakable, saying, "She doesn't suspect a thing." I lost it. Screamed at Trey that night, through the photos Ethan gave me in his face. He denied everything, said I was paranoid, but I kicked him out. Dylan cried himself to sleep, and I felt like the worst mom alive. Here's where it goes off the rails. A few days later, Trey came back begging. Said he'd never cheated, that Jeanette was just a client, and he'd been working late on a big pitch. I didn't want to believe him, but Dylan missed him so much, and honestly, I did too. We started patching things up. Then one night, Dylan found this weird setup in our basement, cameras, microphones, a freaking surveillance hub. My stomach dropped. Someone had been watching us. Trey called the cops, and they traced it back to Ethan. Turns out, he wasn't just some PI, he had a rap sheet a mile long. Assault, stalking, you name it. He'd been obsessed with me from the start, feeding me lies to break us up. The audio? Doctored. The photos? Staged. And Mr. Carter? Police think Ethan killed him because he'd seen too much. They found evidence he'd even hired some junkie to take Trey out, but the guy botched it and ran. Ethan disappeared before they could arrest him. Last I heard, he was spotted a few towns over, but I still check my locks every night. Trey and I are trying to rebuild, therapy's helping, but I can't stop blaming myself. I hired the guy who almost destroyed us. All because I couldn't trust my own husband. Has anyone else been through something like this? How do you move on when the truth gets so tangled up in lies? I just want my family back the way it was.